Hi everyone, Mature Simmer here. So, been doing some work in the dark here and just not including it because it's dark. So, I'm saving the major part of the work for later once it brightens up. I've synced the server. This is about where it should be. It's actually, honestly, a little bit ahead because at the time I got on, I didn't have a 2-hour difference. I had about an hour and 45, hour and 30-minute difference. So, it really probably should just be getting after 6 a.m. So, and even so, it's 6:30 here. It's down, but I'm at the point now. I figured, other than just tell you, I'll bring you along here. But we're delivering the cheese finally that got created. So the cheese had maxed out. So this is the most I can get out of the dairy at one given time. So it spews 6,000 out onto the pad, and then holds 5,000 inside as the capacity. So I took every last bit that I could that was produced, and we're just bringing it down here to the one sell point we've been using, which is the Circle C Saloon, which is just down here north of the custom space, and we'll sell it for whatever we're selling it for. You'll notice, I think I had mentioned last time that, hey, you're going to see about 2.25 million because I'm going to sell all my milk. I did not sell anything other than that one. I didn't have time. At this point, I took a look. It looks like hopefully prices are going to rise tomorrow because right now they're almost down 50 or 60, 1,000, which, again, it is not the end of the world. Again, this isn't a money series per se, but if I can wait one more day, there's not really a reason not to do that. Oh, alright, so once again, so 17 plus say another 3, so 20,000 for cheese, so not too bad. It is not the most enjoyable job, although I have gotten a little bit better at it, just because I've been doing it longer, of just loading the pallets on here. It's hard with the forklift to get things to work exactly as you want, but if I have that maximum amount of 11,000 or so, I think that'll work because there wasn't a lot of, oh goodness, things are falling off. Like I was able to put the 6 on the lower level first and then strap those down and then go ahead and put the 5 on top, and that worked out okay. Now we're up to 2148, but we have about 360,000 liters of milk again in the barn. I'll get into more of that later as I start working through it, but what I've done this morning so far is I've topped off the cow barn, or at least added more material in all cases. The only thing I've really got left is I probably will go ahead now and add a load of mineral feed because we're down to 55,000, but I'm kind of monitoring things. I want to just make sure now I understand what my burn rate is, because what I want to do is start planning out the frequency or the cadence of keeping things going. So how often do I need to collect more hay? How often do I need to do other things? Because at this point, I think I've used, between the BGA and the barn, 400,000 liters of the hay that I've had, yeah. So the BGA is actually the silage, so I'm getting things mixed up, which is why I was hesitating, because I'm like, it's not right. What am I talking about? But so yeah, so just with the barn, I think I've used 300,000 or 400,000 liters of hay since I've started, and I think it was into a little bit of last year, but now I'm not sure. It might only be 6 months, and that just seems like a lot of hay. So I'm not sure that I redid the consumption results after the barn got updated and added some capacity. So once they fix that, I'm wondering if the consumption increased, because it was some insane amount, like 1.5 million liters of hay should last me like 234 days, which I'm like, it clearly isn't doing that. So I'm waiting to do that. But at this point, I've done everything I can, short of the work that I'm going to focus on today, which is getting grass in, because as you can see here, we're down to 113,000 liters of silage. I did top off the BGA completely. The barn, however, is only at about 260, 270, so I could put another 70,000 or so, maybe, close to 100,000 in there. So I basically, for all intents and purposes, could deplete my silage to zero. So I know I need to start replenishing that, as obviously the fermenting silos don't run instantaneously. So I don't think the barn and the BGA are consuming faster than the silo can produce. So I think I'm going to be perfectly fine. But I've got nothing else I can do right now, given that we're headed into winter. So I was going to take the opportunity to go ahead and do some grass. So once we get a little bit more daylight, I'll get in here, and at some point I'll share some information with you of how things are going, and we'll go from there. But I'll see you in a bit. Alright, I'm back. I'm starting to get going here. Still a little bit dark. A little bit of the dawn haze is still having to wear off, but I just wanted to get going because I've got time now. So as you've noticed, I'm doing this field a little bit differently. I've decided, I've got less things along the edge if I go this way, where I have trees kind of on both ends if I go north and south. Plus these are longer rows, and yeah, I'm gonna have part of the field left, but it's kind of the same thing. I didn't do the whole field before, so I'm gonna see what we'll be able to do. I'm not sure if I'll end up having stuff left here on the edge, because I won't be able to pick it up. I assume it wouldn't let me cut if that was the case, but who knows. So I'm just going as quick as I can, because at this point this is just going to be a real quick and dirty collection, because all I need to do now is mow and then pick this up and throw it in the bunker. And if I've got extra grass, I'll just throw it into the hayloft and then move it over as I need to. But we can get things off the field and so forth. Plus we get a little bit extra here with this little finger that sticks out in between the fields. So all in all, this is probably going to be more than I normally do, because I think I normally just go kind of up and down through this area, and then that ends up being what I collect. Now, again, when I did the hay, I believe I did the whole field, so I think that 1.5 million liters was everything, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm going to get 1 million liters here. And that would obviously be great, because that would fill up that fermenting silo, and then we'll be able to keep going for a bit there. So I did redo the calculation that I talked about, now that I've gotten information on what I've got left here. I keep clipping into the grass a little bit, which is okay, but I ran a couple here because we do have some trees and other things that would make it challenging to do what I'm doing on the other end. Plus, I'm thinking I'm going to kind of be upset with what I did on the other end when I go try to pick it up, because while I can just drive around and leave a swath, it probably isn't going to be that clean to pick up. So I'm sure it's going to take a little bit of tractor gymnastics, as I like to call it, to get that done. But this goes, pretty quickly, as you can see here. So definitely a nice kind of process, and nice mower. I do love this setup, and that I can just swath right away. The challenge if I'm making hay is I've got to go in and ted that, and then when you ted it, it kind of throws it everywhere. So then you got to go back and windrow it to pick it up effectively. So there's always that challenge. But right now, with what I've got here, I can go ahead and just keep doing what I'm doing, and it works wonderfully. So yeah, I'm making some tight turns as soon as I get off the field here, because otherwise I think what I'm going to run into is I'm going to run into a situation where I won't be able to pick that up, and then I'll just have material sitting there. So worst case, if it won't let me go over there, I could always come by with a windrower and slide it over into my property, because as long as the tractor or the center of the tool is on property, it seems to be able to extend and reach over a little bit, which I think is part of why everything's working the way it is. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be curious how this plays out. But going back to the barn, so I can get about 37 days out of the hay that I cut. And then everything else operates, at some different paces, because I think silage does the same thing. So if I had 1.5 million liters of silage, that would give me 37 days too. And these are, actual days as well. So running 24 hours a day. So if I don't get 1.5 million here, which I probably won't, I'm going to get 1 million. I'm going to have some fraction of that, but you could obviously assume it'd be a third less, and so instead of 37, we're probably going to be talking more 24, 25. So either way, I'm going to get a good month out of things. Now, the challenge with silage, however, is I'm going to try to keep the BGA processing as well, because that's kind of the whole point of having that there, to just generate some passive cash flow as I'm piling things in. And so that's going to consume, as we talked about, 70,000 liters a day in addition. So over those 27 days, that's going to be quite a bit as well. So I'm probably going to have to get grass off the field more often than I'm going to have to get hay. But the other nice thing is I at least seem to have a reasonable pace. It's not like I'm even having to work within every game year or something to pull things. The field is large enough that it's going to give me a good amount of capacity off the field with the yield that I'm getting, and then I don't have to worry about it. So it doesn't look like the farmer's done anything, although I may have just sold it this year, but I'm like, nobody's picked that field up and done anything with it. So it's just sitting there, harvested and with the weeds growing from when I worked it last. So the other piece is I'm still working toward getting my TMR maximized. You can see here 335,000 liters of milk. So I was talking about that. I'm going to go ahead and likely sell that tomorrow, with the hope that I'm going to be at least over 700 a liter per 1,000 liters. Right now I'm in the upper 600s. But things should creep up on the selling price there. I found the charts almost end up kind of being in flux, but in general they move around, because it's like on the day you're on, it's like the movement on the day you're on always seems to be really tiny. So it's like it flips the day and then jumps to some price and then just kind of sticks around that price for a while. So bumped a button on my wheel, scared the heck out of myself, honestly, because it got really loud in my ears. I don't know if that was caught in the audio, because I'm not sure what is feeding you at that point, but I'm guessing you probably got some of that, so hopefully it didn't make you jump as well. But there's, I think, a button clearly on my wheel that is mapped to the same thing as the C button on the keyboard, and sometimes when I'm making a turn, I end up hitting it with my palm or something as I'm flipping the wheel around, so I think that's what happened there. I suppose I could solve the problem by finding that and unmapping it from the wheel, but it's not really that big of a deal. So it's not one of those that I'm putting mental energy into at this point and working on with that. So right. So yeah, it looks like probably gonna get 20-ish rows here across. But my intent is obviously go down. The nice thing with this is kind of once I'm lined up, it's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, where the north-south on the field, I had to adjust around the silo, I had to do other things, which also is then kind of what kept me from doing much beyond that large piece, because I'm like, you know, I don't need a ton, I can always just keep mowing this area and it doesn't become that big of a job. But I've got a little bit of time, or a little bit of extra time today, so I figured I'd go ahead and do that before I have to hop off and focus on some other stuff. But unfortunately that didn't let me get all the way to daylight, but pretty exciting. So, cloud-covered day and so forth. So, just as an added aside, nothing to do with Farming Simulator, but for those of you who might be space nerds, you probably know this already if you are a space nerd, really. But if not, if you live in the United States, and mainly, say, on a path from Texas up through Maine, kind of diagonal that way, obviously it's more of a curve, the way things work with the moon and an eclipse, but about a year from now, on April 8th, 2024, we have a total eclipse coming, and I am super excited because I actually live on the path of totality, so I have never been blessed with the opportunity to see a total eclipse. My concern, however, is as I look at those clouds and look at the sun, is I'm not sure we're going to have a clear day in early April in this part, you know, kind of up north in the Midwest, and April's not always clear days, but I'm going to pray that we get lucky and that we're, Lord willing, allowed to see that in all its glory, because it's pretty rare. One of the things I found out as I kind of was watching or learning about some astronomy stuff through an astronomy lecture video that I was watching, and that's where I happened to see when they put up the eclipse chart. I'm like, wait a minute, that 2024 thing looks like it goes over, like right over where I'm at, and you know, got up close to the screen and took a look, and sure enough, and then did some more research in the last few days, and it absolutely is. We're really only, you know, like probably a couple dozen miles at most from the center line of the moon's shadow as it's going to pass over, and so we're going to be as close to perfect as we can get as far as the length of time that we're going to be exposed, because the closer you are to that center line, the longer the maximum period is. So, like, the stars are aligning, so to speak, and I am excited, but we're basically a year away, so I've got a long time to be excited, but just kind of looking at the sky kind of made me think of that, so figured I'd share that with anybody who's listening and hanging around, and hopefully you stumble upon this video before that date if you aren't aware of it, and it makes you aware of it, and you can make your plans. You can go to NASA and look for eclipse maps, for example, and they'll show you exactly where that path of totality is. So if you don't live near it, which most people probably won't be in it, like we're lucky enough to be, but you know, maybe you can make some plans to travel somewhere and hopefully catch that, because realistically, the thing I learned watching that one video is any individual place on Earth only is in the path once every 360 years or so. So the likelihood of you being in the path without moving is pretty low. So that's why I definitely feel blessed to have that opportunity, because we're not planning on going anywhere before 2024 from here, so we'll still be here. Lord willing, and we'll take a look at that. But again, not farming simulator related, but just cool stuff that has me excited, and figured I'd share that little tidbit with you and maybe give you some knowledge that you might not be aware of. So I'm going to go ahead and keep getting this complete, and then I'll go start collecting, and at some point we'll go ahead and join back up and just give you an update. So this will probably be a relatively short episode, as they normally go, because I've done a bunch of work that I didn't have on camera because it was just in the dark, and this map is very, very dark. So all we've really got is this grass harvest right now, which is what we'll be doing, and I don't have a whole lot else to tell you, so I'll see you in a bit. Back here at the end of the day, this is my last load, so I'm a little disappointed in where I ended up. I'm not even gonna fill this silo. I'm gonna have about 850,000 or so, because I've got about 600,000 now waiting to be processed with this load, which you can see there. So literally 852, I guess, or no, 847. So not even going to be at 850. I think the silo goes to like 965, or maybe even closer to like 980, 990. So, you know, and there's a hunk of field up there that I didn't do and so forth, but I think certainly what I'm seeing is the growth of using the fertilizer and so forth. Like, obviously this did not generate as much as I thought. So part of it, I guess, is, let me see, so yeah, we're basically down 22% without the fertilizer, so it's pretty low. Just curious, if I pop out here, is it even worse? Actually, it won't tell me. But let's see, the nitrogen's okay. Theoretically, nitrogen's okay here too. Now it looks like, I wonder if part of it looks like I could have gone another day, which is strange, before it's done. Although, oh, you know what might have been? It might have been because of the winter. So that might be a little part of it. So let me turn off the light, because if I take the lessons I learned on my generational farming, like I was cutting at this point where I could with the forage, and I found out if I then did 3 harvests a year instead of 4, I got basically the same amount. So I got, in essence, a 33% boost. So if I had an additional 33% on top of 800, well, it'd be 750,000 or so, because I had about 100 left in the silo at that point, but I would have gotten another 200 some thousand, so that would have gotten me right up around, obviously, 950, which would have filled up the silo. So maybe it's not so bad. Maybe it'll work just by letting it go ahead at that point. But as promised, I just wanted to pop in and let you know what the end looked like. So I've got about 40,000 left of everything in the BGA, and if I pop over here, I'm in good shape here. The lowest item, which is straw, is used pretty slowly. It's not as slow as mineral feed, but I'm not going to run out of things before tomorrow morning. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now, and we'll be back, and I'll see you next time.